Hello, everybody. Keaton Gillogly with you, and today we have the opportunity to talk to Pete Woodworth, the current Mariners pitching coach and the former Modesto Nuts pitching coach. He was with the Nuts in 2017 and 2018 and helped bring a title to Nuts Nation in that 2017 season. Pete, how are we doing?
Fantastic, as good as we can be during this strange time, but things are good at home.
Yeah, what's your quarantine routine looking like daily?
Ooh, the quarantine routine. Well, with the newborn, he just turned 3 months today, actually. So that has definitely shifted the routine. But it's similar to spring training. It's early mornings and it's nonstop until the sun goes down and he falls asleep. Now my wife and I've gotten on a pretty good routine, kind of figuring out how to be a team and play a little man-to-man defense with the little guy, and able to have time to exercise, to get some personal time. We have a ton of calls, with the organization and with the players, and then finding ways to stay sharp, to learn, to keep learning. It makes for a pretty busy day, actually, without baseball being played.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how we even got a 3-hour game in every day. All right, let's go back. Here you sit in your terrific Nuts shirt, and I know you have your Nuts coaching helmet. Well represented.
Never forget.
No, but it took a long time for you to get to Modesto. It took a long time for you to get to Double-A, and now you're sitting here as the Mariners pitching coach. But I want to go back to your Northwoods League days, playing for Andy McKay, the director of player development now for the Mariners, on a pitching staff with Chris Sale, who was your college teammate too. What do you remember about your summer in the Northwoods League?
I was actually fortunate enough to play 2 summers. Most guys, they get a year of the Northwoods, like their freshman year, and then they go on and play in the Cape and go on to bigger and better and greater things and the draft and the big leagues. I wasn't very good, so I had to go back to the Northwoods a couple times. But playing for Andy 2 years was changed my life, changed my career. It's definitely a huge reason of why I'm here today. It was where I first kind of learned what I was going to do when the game spat me out as a player. I came to the field every day and was fortunate enough to actually learn something every day. Most of it wasn't even baseball related. It wasn't. I didn't come out of there a much better pitcher. I didn't throw any harder. My stuff didn't get any better, and it wasn't like I was winning a ton of games. But I learned so much about who I was and who I wanted to be, and that was my first introduction into the mental side of the game, and that in turn made me a completely different pitcher, a more mature pitcher. I know my career wasn't very long, but for how short it was and whatever I did in that time period had a lot to do with that summer. And guys say all the time, like, oh, my favorite baseball memory, it's usually either Cooperstown, a big college, like super regional or college World Series game, like getting drafted, their major league debut, like it's all these big games. What shaped me, my favorite playing part of baseball was definitely the Northwoods League in La Crosse, Wisconsin, 08 and 09.
Well, what do you remember about the way Andy was preaching some of the mental side of the game? Because at that point, he was really blazing the trail. And, from there, he went on to the Rockies and now into the Mariners. And he's really helped blaze the trail for that peak performance, that those mental skills coaches that are now starting to pop up around all of the major league organizations. So when you go back and think about the way he was preaching that, how out of the ordinary was that for a baseball person to be talking about the mental side of the game the way he was?
I'd never heard of it. There'd been like little pieces, but it was never like classroom type settings. This is the topic today. This is what we're going to talk about. Here's a book. Here's a pamphlet. here's real life, real baseball situations where this skill set can help you. It was every day. It's summer ball. Like, you're supposed to go and play and have fun, just kind of show and go, get some innings under your belt, get some ABs under your belt. We had 7:00 games. We played 70 games in 74 days. So it's very similar to a full minor league season type schedule. We were at the field at 1:30 every day. Like, we practiced like we were a minor league team. We prepared like we were a minor league team. And every day started with a full team, like, sit down conversations. He'd bring out books. He'd read some passages and just kind of make you think for the day. He introduced me to journaling, which is what I started immediately, and just wrote down everything that he was teaching us or was preaching. And so to look back at those books now, like, it has evolved, but a lot of the meat and potatoes are things that stuck with me and that I definitely use as a player and even more as a coach. But it's a lot of the foundation of what we're doing with Seattle. So you saw the I don't want to say the early stages, because he had been doing that for a long time. That wasn't year one, but you kind of saw the creation of what our minor league player development kind of looks like, especially from the mental side and the character side, I guess.
So you play those 2 seasons, you finish up your collegiate career, and after college, you ended up getting signed to play a little bit of pro baseball. What was that time period like for you at the end of your college career as you were trying to get an opportunity to show your stuff on the professional side?
It's actually an interesting story that also has to do with lacrosse and Andy. I remember watching the draft on my phone. Sale went day one. We were at his house for a little draft party. And me and a couple other guys on the team, stayed in contact day 2 and day 3, like, waiting for our names to be called. And sure enough, my name was not called. And I packed up my Toyota Camry and I drove from Florida to La Crosse, Wisconsin, the very next morning to be the pitching coach for the La Crosse Loggers for Andy that summer. It was a quick turnaround. It was like, all right, I'm not my big league dreams have been shattered. They're gone. Move on. Turn the page. I was excited to start my coaching career. Every kid has the aspirations and dreams of pitching in the big leagues. Maybe it was a bad idea for me to have a plan B, but I had that. I had already started kind of creating my curriculum. So I jumped in the car and I drove all the way up there. I'm eating dinner with my host family the night before day one, and the Tampa Bay Rays call, and they say, "Hey, can you come down to the Trop? I live like 5-10 minutes from Tropicana Field. Can you come sign? We want you to come pitch for our rookie ball team this summer." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, but it's gonna take me a couple days." So I called Andy. I told him the opportunity, and he was like, "Go on, get." So the very next morning, I turned around and drove all the way back to Florida. Signed and played. Loved every second of the Golf Roast League.
The Golf Roast League.
The Golf Roast League. It's noon games in Florida in June and July. I loved it, and being from Florida, it wasn't a big deal. But met a ton of guys that I got to see kind of progress through the system. Being a Rays fan, and then actually got to coach one of them last year in Parker Markell. So the 2010 Gulf Coast League Rays are still living and thriving.
So you played that 1 year. When did you get your release at that point?
I was back at FGCU in the fall working out. Gonna go to spring training. Gonna kill it. Gonna go right from rookie ball to the show. And ran out of money, so I got a job at Dick's Sporting Goods. Was going through the interview process. Last interview, meeting with the district manager or what have you, and the Andy McKay of the Rays, the farm director, called me like as I'm parking and releases me on the phone. Once again, big league dream shattered. I walk into the interview like ghost white. I probably cried. The guy immediately saw that something was wrong, and I told him I had just gotten released, and he hired me out of pity. So it worked out. That was it. Playing career over.
Yeah, well, I mean, did it feel like everything was over at that point and you had no baseball left? Or were you? I mean, you said you had been excited about starting your coaching career before, and you weren't as devastated after not getting drafted. But then to be released out of pro ball, it sounds like that was a much harder hit.
Absolutely. To get a taste of it, especially with my hometown team, to wear a Rays uniform, and then kind of have it taken away. It was tough, and those were probably the darkest days. I didn't really know what I was going to do because I still had the itch to play. I wanted to go play indie ball and prove everybody wrong and come back. And so I'm working out at FGCU, trying to get ready. Don't really have anything going on. And the scout that signed me, I ran into him at our scout day for FGCU. And he asked me what I was doing. I said, I'm going to go play independent ball. I'm going to, make my comeback, I'll prove you wrong. And he said, don't. I was like, what do you mean? He said, I didn't sign you because I thought you were going to be a big leaguer. I signed you because you threw strikes and I knew you could help like mentor and coach the younger rookie ball league players.
A Crash Davis situation.
Yeah. Yeah, but for 16 and 18-year-olds instead of Nuke Lelouch. The Crash Davis of the Gulf Coast League. So that kind of stung, but I took his advice, and he hired me to help him out in the state of Florida scouting for the Rays. So that the guy that gave me my opportunity stuck a dagger in my playing career, but helped resurrect my life and my coaching, scouting, professional career.
Did you have an indie ball team lined up, or were you still kind of looking and just trying to figure that out?
Yeah, Traverse City Beach Bums.
And northern Michigan, I hear it's beautiful up there.
It was the first time I'd played baseball in snow.
Beautiful in June and July,
not in April. I was there for 3 weeks, and that was it.
Being from Chicago and playing high school baseball in the snow, it never gets better.
No.
Always terrible. All right, so you get to do a little bit of scouting, and then you get the opportunity to get back into the coaching side in the collegiate ranks. And one guy Nuts fans are very familiar with, and somebody we've actually already talked to on our quarantined interviews, is Reggie McClain. And you had a chance to recruit him a little bit. He eventually got the awesome opportunity to go pitch back in the SEC at Missouri, and now got to big leagues this year, and that's a whole nother conversation. But what do you remember about just trying to recruit Reggie McClain to pitch for you at Nova Southeastern?
Oof. I was a big fan of Reggie from day one. He was at a junior college in Manatee. It was my first year coaching. It was my first year recruiting. So I'm trying to build the future staff at Nova, and I see this super athletic kid just pummeling the strike zone. Every time I saw him, like, never walked anybody, forced a ton of contact. It was just kind of like exactly what what we wanted our starters and our staff to do at that time. Got him on campus. He played with a couple of guys at Nova. Heard great things. Got him on campus, and I thought it was a match made in heaven. And then Missouri came along, and I don't blame him one bit. I'm glad he went there, and he absolutely killed it there. It was fun to see him, win SEC Pitcher of the Week a couple times and dominate in that level. I could only imagine what he would have done at Nova. Would have been a part of that championship team for sure. And so then when we drafted him, I remember shooting him a text and be like, "Hey man, welcome to the Mariners. Like, I'm so excited for you. Hopefully we get to work together." And sure enough, we probably spent a little bit more time than Reggie wishes, but we got to spend a lot of time together. Got to probably watch him have 40 starts. It's been incredible.
It was 50 starts in the Cal League for him in 17 and 18.
Wow. Some of them were incredible. Some of them not so much, but most of them were, especially that first year. He was like it was a man amongst boys in that first half in 17. So to see kind of where he was at that junior college, to kind of see him from a distance at Mizzou, come through our system, have a ton of success, have failure and adversity, and then to skyrocket to the big leagues and be doing what he's doing now. I don't know. There's not a ton of stories like that, and I'm not going to have many people that I scouted, recruited, coached at this level, coached at 3 different levels. It's special. Reggie's got a special place in my heart.
Well, let's pick up his story at the end of 2018 then. He's wrapping up his second year in the Cal League with you as his pitching coach for the second straight year in Modesto. And it was a down year compared to his 2017, and it was certainly a low spot for him. But he pointed to one of the end-of-year conversations he had with you and Mitch. He called it a hard conversation. He got a lot of truth out of it, and it was something that sparked him to do what he did in Arizona. And that's a conversation he and I have had, and that's up through what we've done now. But what do you remember about that conversation with Reggie at the end of 2018?
Oof. I remember trying to put together the message in the best way that he's going to take it and be able to understand and adjust from it. And those conversations are tough. Releases are tough. Demoting guys are tough. But I just remember like 3-4 days in a row just racking my brain. I don't maybe procrastinating because I didn't want to lose Reggie. I didn't want to totally crush him. But we needed to get the point across that some adjustments need to be made. And it's probably a conversation I'll never forget, because it took a lot of time to construct, and the actual conversation was difficult. You spend so much time with that kid. You have years and years of history, to kind of see him at his worst and to be brutally honest with him. You look back at it now and you're like, man, like that, I'm so glad we did that. So glad we had that conversation. But at the time, it definitely was difficult, and I'm sure it wasn't fun to hear. But the legend, it speaks for itself. He went to work. He moved to Arizona. He lived at the facility. He changed the way he moved. He changed the way he threw. He changed the way he ate. He changed the way he thought. Like you talk about guys like being too stubborn to make adjustments. Like this kid said, what do I got to do? I'm going to do everything and anything possible. He did it, and within like 2-3 months, like it was 92. Then a week later it's 93, then it's 94, then it's 95, then it's 96, and all of a sudden like he's throwing 98 miles an hour and having an absolute blast, like a little kid playing the game. And it was really fun to watch this entire past year, from that off season where he kind of rebuilt himself.
You said you were racking your brain about how you wanted to present this situation to him. What was the strategy you ultimately settled on about how you were trying to communicate what he needed to improve and change?
Honesty. I didn't want to sugarcoat anything. I fall into the trap of doing that. You know, you get close, you build relationships with guys, and that's definitely a trap where you get comfortable with them, where you don't really want to be blunt and brutally honest with them, because there's that fear that the relationship will fall apart. And at that time it was like, what's more important, Reggie's career or our relationship together? Like, sorry, Reg, like I have 4 friends, I'm good. I don't I don't need a ton. But I want you to be successful. I want you to have your career and not go out on these terms that aren't, you know, what you wanted or what you should be doing. So it was just kind of saying like, all right, screw the relationship. Here's the truth.
And ultimately, I'm sure it helped the relationship to where you guys are now. And when you found out he was going up to the big leagues, I mean, what was the emotion like in that moment?
That was the cool part about this last year, and being in AA was we saw a lot of guys make the jump straight to the big leagues. Telling a guy in Clinton that he's going to Bakersfield or going to Modesto was a blast. And Mitch and Season, I had a ton of fun with that. Telling guys in Modesto that they were going to Little Rock was even more fun because they're just one step closer. But seeing guys, hearing guys, watching the emotion that they have when they're going to the big leagues, it's tough to explain, especially not actually getting to experience that myself. But just seeing that dream, that goal just be checked off like right there in person. It's awesome. Wasn't there to tell Reggie. He actually went up from Tacoma, but telling him he was going to Tacoma was we were in Northwest Arkansas. He had been with us for only a couple weeks. I don't think but one guy actually touched the ball. He'd done everything from like spot starting, throwing 3-4 innings, coming in the 8th, blowing 98 miles an hour. He was beyond ready. And in less than 6-7 months to go from that conversation that we had in Modesto to the conversation of like, you are one step away from the big leagues. Yeah, it's definitely a special one. It'll be tough to forget.
So let's pick up your timeline when you made the decision to jump into professional baseball. Was that a tough decision, or were you chomping at the bit to get to pro ball as a coach?
I really enjoyed the college game. That was my goal. My goal was to play in the big leagues and to be the pitching coach at Florida Gulf Coast. So after the 1 year at Nova, the head coach that I played for at Florida Gulf Coast called up and said, our pitching coach is going back home. Would you be interested? And I drove the 2 hours across the coast and made the switch. I loved every minute of it. I had a great group of let's shoot, even the whole team. I was probably 25, 24, 25, 26 at the time. So, you know, you're close in age. And I had just kind of played there not very long ago. So it was very comfortable. it was fun to put that uniform back on, win games for, my school, and to help, build, develop players to then go on and represent our school in professional baseball. Loved it. Met my wife there. Some of the best times we had. I'm big fan of Fort Myers. But when Andy McKay called, you run. I it didn't take much thought. I didn't even know what Clinton, Iowa was. I just knew that Andy was kind of starting something special, and was building his program there. And I would have gone anywhere. It was a very easy decision. It was probably tougher for my wife to understand, but she got over it. Once
So
she came to Clinton and saw what we were doing there, she understood.
then you got to introduce her to Modesto the next year after the half year in Clinton. And that was the championship year. That was 2017. And it was an incredible year. There was a number of guys who are now up in the big leagues from that team. What do you remember about the 2017 Modesto Nuts?
Oh, man. I was asked the other day, like, what my favorite baseball memory is, and that entire season. The first thing that jumps out, spending every day with that guy. We had built something special in Clinton. Him, Caesar, and I immediately became very close. We had Cabby as our fourth coach, who was a stud. And we had basically that same group in Modesto from 17. So we all kind of moved together. So it was a very tight-knit group. And I don't want to say there weren't any prospects, because there were. But it was kind of like this ragtag, ranked 30th in minor league baseball farm system, like sandlot group of guys that I don't know how they did it. They're still doing it today, but like absolutely loved coming to the ballpark, absolutely loved pulling for each other. Like the culture and environment that was maybe planted in Clinton started growing, and by the end of the 2017 season, like we were reaping the benefits. We were eating the fruit from that harvest, and still are today. Memories, there's way too many. Jordan Cowan's home run in the postseason in Lancaster that went 600 feet somehow, some way.
He had two big home runs in that run, because he had another one in game one of the division series too. He hit one late, but I think he only had 2 hits in that whole postseason.
They were both clutch home runs. Very
Scott Pasednik of him.
Yeah, like the rat Jordan Cowan comes to mind. The Filia shimmy.
Yep.
Filia
he had that big game in the clincher at the end of the first half where he hit a home run off his face at Inland Empire when you guys had clinched that first half.
Right.
On the mound.
Yeah, like that was my first introduction to Eric Filia, and I heard about this guy. We heard the stories of UCLA and this and that in the mansion, and there is no one else in the game of baseball like Eric Filia. He is certainly one of a kind. He was entertaining every day. I love that he was on our team, because I would have hated to pitch to that guy. Shoot, like the list goes on. That team, like I said, wasn't loaded with prospects per se, but if I was to like build my own team, I'd take a handful of those guys. Just good baseball players, grinders. just guys that you wanna share a foxhole with. You want to spend 140 straight days with in California when it's 110 degrees, and enjoy every second of it. The staff maybe was a little loaded, with Neidert and Lopez at one time, Duggar, Art Warren, Matt Festa. Shoot, like Schiraldi had the best curveball in all of baseball. It's tough. It's tough to top that staff, but like I said, the guys they loved that clubhouse. They loved being together, and I think what tied it all together was Jim Pankovits. Panky was blue.
He was the fourth coach. He was the guy who had the most experience. Where is he now, and how much do you still talk to him?
Panky, from what I know, he was managing for Cleveland, one of their lower level teams. I want to say Mahoning Valley Scrappers. I actually sent him a video the other day. I caught my son doing the Panky Lips. I don't know if you're familiar with the Panky Lips, but he would give signs. We got action. He would give signs at third base or be standing at first base and just have his lips going. So I caught Graham doing that, and I took a quick video of him doing the Panky Lips, and I sent it to him and Mitch. For a guy who's been around the game for a long time, playing, coaching, we learned a ton from him. But the dude brought so much energy every day. If our players enjoyed being there every day, Panky was one step above them. Loved being around that guy.
So we get to 2019. You're at AA, higher than you've been before. You're with Mitch. You get that terrific team with the Travelers and everybody that comes through. You're the Texas League Coach of the Year, which congratulations on that. I want to talk about witnessing guys experiencing their dream, and I want to start first with Mitch. I mean, for Mitch Canham to get the opportunity to go to Oregon State, that was obviously a dream for him in a lot of ways. What was it like watching Mitch go through that process, and then ultimately, I'm sure it was a really difficult decision for him, but what was it like watching him go through that decision-making process and ultimately deciding to go settle in at Oregon State?
Well, I don't want to talk for Mitch, but from probably the first week together in Clinton, he had said that he has two goals: manage the Seattle Mariners or head coach at Oregon State. Very goal-oriented, very action step-oriented. Not like an OCD planner, but has a vision, has a plan to get there, and he even had a timetable. Like, I want to be this by this certain time. Not really my style, so that was probably the only thing we butted heads on was like, why don't you have goals? Why don't you want to be at this level by this time? And I don't know. I just loved coaching. I just wanted to coach. I didn't really care where, as long as me and my family could survive. It's all that mattered. So to kind of see that opportunity was unfolding and opening up for him, and I'm sure it wasn't that tough of a decision. I have pretty strong ties with my alma mater, but I did not win 2 College World Series from my alma mater. And there's something about Corvallis. There's an energy there. There's a life force there, especially around the baseball program, that I haven't ever seen before. Granted, I wasn't at a big powerhouse school like that. But he would stay in contact with guys that he played with. Like, they had text change. They'd have annual golf tournaments. They were a really close alumni group. so for him to go back there, like, is a match made in heaven, and at a really good time. He's got the two little ones, Mac and Maya. That life in the minor leagues with 5, 6, 4-year-olds it's difficult. And shoot, Mitch made it look easy. The ultimate family man. I mean, they were in the clubhouse, they were on road trips. He definitely found a way to make it, at least from the outside, as smooth as possible. But to have a home base, to have Corvallis as a home base, where he kind of became Mitch Canham, it was so cool to see it happen, and also to see how excited the players were for him. Like, everybody knew, like, he was a Beaver through and through. I think one of the games, he came out late because he was watching the College World Series game. Probably not. Maybe he just had it on in the dugout. But yeah, it was really cool to see one of my best friends like check that goal off his list, to do what he said he was gonna do a little bit sooner than he even.
You also had the opportunity to tell a number of 2017 Nuts alums that they were heading up to the big leagues. Kyle Lewis, Donovan Walton, Art Warren. Which of those guys were you a part of telling in the meeting? Was it just Art, or were you there for some of the position players too?
All right. That is probably one of my favorite memories, experiences in the game. We had just lost Game 5 of the championship versus Tulsa, and that was our rival all year. Like, it was a big series. It was a fun series. We were behind, and we came back and we took it to Game 5. We ran out of pitching. We didn't have a starting pitcher, so we're throwing the entire bullpen at him. And it was close, but we lost. And I mean, you know what it's like to pop champagne. So to have the champagne on the other side of the clubhouse and to kind of see those guys celebrate, it's a pretty low feeling. So the clubhouse was at its all-time lowest. But we had 4 guys that were going to go up to the big leagues, and it went from a terrible aura in there to probably even better than popping champagne. The love and excitement that whole team had for those 4 guys, getting to kind of reach their dream at that moment, was awesome. I think Donnie was first. Caesar is very theatrical. He's very thoughtful. He plans a lot of stuff out. So we had known that these guys were getting the call, and so he kind of wrote out this story, and he kind of tied it into like the end of the year speech, like, hold your heads up, guys. You did great. And kind of turned it and started talking about Donnie, and then told Donnie, and he dropped to the ground. Like, it blew him away. And everybody jumps on top of him. They're going crazy. And we go back in the offices, and then we come back out like 5 minutes later. Hold up. And C starts talking about Kyle Lewis, and then we tell Kyle, and everybody goes crazy. Same thing. And so we had a shortstop and a center fielder going, and so I said, well, if those 2 guys are going, we need someone to start. We need a starting pitcher to go. And then we told Dunn, and the place went crazy. And then we go back into the office, and everything kind of settled down, and people started showering, and those guys are super emotional. and we waited a good amount of time. Then we came back out and like, hold up. We have a shortstop, center fielder, starting pitcher. Like, we need someone to finish the game. We need a closer. Art Warren's in a towel, like in the shower. He's not even like in the clubhouse. And we told him, and the look on his face was something I'll never forget. So it went from a really tough situation, a really crappy day, to those 4 guys and that whole team. I think some of those guys were more excited for those guys to go to the show than the actual guys themselves. Jake Haber was going absolutely nuts. You could probably imagine. But yeah, that was one of the coolest moments I've ever been a part of, and it's gonna be tough to top 4 guys making their debut.
Well, you got a call to the big leagues to go this year. What was it like to get the call and the conversation like to get the job as the Seattle Mariners pitching coach?
A whirlwind of emotions. Like I kind of hinted to earlier, I never really had this goal that I want to be the big league pitching coach, because that's the mecca, that's the pinnacle. That's what I'm striving for every day when I wake up. I got to get one step closer to that. I love coaching. I love what I do. I love the players. I love the staff. I love the people. I love the broadcasters. I didn't care where we were going, and I would tell Andy that. I don't care, man. Clinton's cool. Modesto's cool. Little Rock's cool. So to have this opportunity come up was, I don't want to say surprising, but it wasn't like I've been marking it off on my calendar. It was kind of something Manny Acta told us a couple years ago, like, just do your job, do it to the best of your ability, and enjoy the journey, and good things will happen. And that's kind of where Mitch and I differed, but it was definitely a whirlwind of emotions, because the jump from Modesto to Little Rock was really cool, especially to go up with a handful of those guys. But the jump from AA to the big leagues was I didn't fall down like Donnie did, but without it being like a goal that I'd been looking forward to, it was definitely a dream come true. And spring training to put the uniform on, to have more of a leadership role, but to continue doing the same things that we've been doing was an absolute blast.
Oh, paint the physical picture for me. Was it the phone call? Was it in person? Who told you? And what was that process like?
Hold on, let me turn these text message games off.
So yeah. Paint the physical picture for me. Were you on the phone? Where were you? Who talked to you? And what were the words they said to you that you now know you're going to be in the big leagues?
Well, I'd spent some time, talking with Jerry and Scott and Andy, and Brian DeLunas, and a bunch of people involved, and they've noticed what we've been doing in the minor leagues and what we did in Little Rock. So the main thing was, like, continue what you were doing there. We, with the addition of Carson to the big leagues, we're trying to bridge the gap of what was created and what we've been doing in player development in the minor leagues, and bringing a lot of those ideas and implementations into the big leagues. But I remember the call with Jerry. It was nuts. It wasn't something that, like I said, ever really had on the calendar. So to hear those words, for the first time, that you're going to be the pitching coach of the Seattle Mariners, it was nuts. It was awesome.
So here you sit now, obviously the delay to your big league career, but what are some of the things you guys are doing now to try to just communicate effectively? I mean, I'm sure it's got to be really tough for the guys, for you and for everybody else, just trying to talk to each other, communicate how to get better, how to stay sharp. So what are some of the things you guys are doing right now to effectively communicate with a lot of the players throughout the organization?
Phone calls, texts. We've sent out a couple surveys to see what guys have available to them, from weight room equipment to throwing partners to baseballs, anything that they have to maintain what they've built during spring training, to kind of tread water. Some guys have a lot of resources, some guys not so much. So just keeping in contact with them, whether it's Brian or I or anybody on the staff, kind of checking in with them. I'm not too concerned about the baseball pitching side of it. These guys are very motivated. They're very driven. It is a younger group. There's a lot of guys that are hungry. Some of them have had a couple cups of coffee. Some of them have had a sip. Some of them are watching it being poured in front of them. So there's a lot of thirsty guys that aren't going to go home and sit on the couch. And when the season does continue, they're not going to not be ready. There's not one guy who can really afford to chill. I think that's one of the coolest parts of our veteran guys that aren't super old, don't have 10, 12 years in the big leagues under their belt. They're working their tail off. They're doing everything they can. So it's not really a communication on that end. It's more just, checking in, see how they're doing, see how their family's doing. Finding ways to keep them involved. We're gonna have more Zoom conference calls, little happy hour chalk talks. We're just kind of split it up, and you just talk to guys every day, every couple days, check in with them. Nothing super technical. It would be great if every guy had a Moda sleeve and a Rapsodo and a home bullpen and a football field to throw on. But guys are getting creative with what they have. We have some interesting setups and some creative ideas for how guys are maintaining. But we also have a lot of young guys that are young fathers and young husbands that are definitely working on that aspect of their life as well.
Well, Pete, we just did almost a full hour, about 50 minutes, 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
This was really great. Anything, any parting thoughts or anything you want to add at the end here?
Yeah. Did you, were you ever a part of the Rambo skits?
I had only heard bits and pieces of what Mitch would do with the Rambo skits.
Yeah, we'll keep that. We'll keep that Mitch's little secret. But I was looking for different wardrobe changes that I can throw on, and I found one of the.
That's authentic. That was what he was using, wasn't it?
This was in Rancho Cucamonga. We were at for as good as the 17 team was, we hit a skid late in the second half. Maybe got comfortable, won the first half. We're just kind of coasting into the postseason, and late one night, Mitch was like, "I got to wake these guys up." We're like, Franco was in town. David Franco, our middle skills coach. We had Austin Knight with us. Was it Austin? I remember Franco vividly, because we were characters in this motivational speech, we'll call it, that Mitch would have for the guys to get them juiced, to get them pumped up, to get them refocused, to get back on track. And this was one of our props. And yeah, Mitch Mitch rallied the troops. I think we went 17-3 after that speech, and then undefeated in the postseason. So the legend of Rambo is definitely true, and jealous of all the players that got to experience
it. Well, I'm sure I'll be talking to Mitch at some point during this, and we'll see how much of that he wants to share with us.
I hope so.
Did we get in all the costume changes? Was there any other costumes that haven't made the screen?
Last year, same thing. Went on a little skid in the second half. We won the first half by 20 games, something like that. And Caesar thought the same thing. Like, hey, we need to have some fun. We need to get these guys back on track. So we had a costume bus ride party. It was Jersey, so everybody balled out. There were a ton of great ones. I decided to go as Ray Finkel from the 1981 Miami Dolphins. So I got a Finkel jersey, and I got this sweet replica helmet, socks, everything. And I lost. I didn't even win. Our quality control guy, Matt Mistretta, was a spitting image of Shane Falco from The Replacements. Yeah, he got the I think it was $100.
Which is to say that means he looks exactly like Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves' cousin from Baton Rouge. He didn't have a helmet though, and I thought this really tied the whole outfit together. Spent a couple $100 on it, didn't even work. But I couldn't throw it away. I figured I'd keep it for this interview.
Well, myself and all of Nuts Nation are grateful for that, for Rambo, and for a title in 2017. Awesome to see your success. Excited to see how things play out. I know it's obviously been tough, but I'm glad you guys are safe. You get a little daddy time at home, and before you know it, we'll be back out on the field.
Hopefully sooner than later.
All right. Appreciate the time, Pete.
Glad you didn't make me sing the Modesto Nuts theme song.
We would never. Well, you guys won the title. If you had lost, maybe I would have forced you on that one. But you had won the title, so we're good. We're never putting that one on.
Still plays over and over.
I might have to put that at the end of this interview and let it play us out.
I sing it to my son to put him to sleep.
Oh, I love it, Pete. Well, again, stay safe, and we'll see you out on the field soon.
Appreciate it, Keith. Good seeing you, man.